Good morning, guys. There is a lot happening here on the homestead, and first I want to show you something very exciting that happened.
Look who's sitting on the nest. I don't want to bug her. I just came out to check and I accidentally scared her off the nest and she popped this egg right out here. Thank you. I'm sorry I scared you. It's our first blue-green egg. Now typically when chickens lay their first eggs, they're going to be smaller than normal, and then as they get older their eggs will get bigger. So this is small, but they should increase in size as they get used to laying.
Then we're going to go harvest some broccoli and tie up some cherry tomatoes. The way I tie up my cherry tomatoes is very different from the way that I tie up and prune my beefsteak tomatoes that are going to be huge. We are going to keep track of how much broccoli we get out of the garden. So let's see how much the bowl weighs first. 2.47. Alright, are you going to remember that? Do you think we should grab the biggest broccoli first or go get the little broccolis first? I don't want to get the big one first. This year in the garden has been a lot about experiments, and the broccoli in the back here versus the broccoli and cabbages in the front, huge difference. And this garden back here, I compost it a lot more. So what I'm thinking is I need to compost the front garden more frequently. It just doesn't get as much compost because it's a lot larger space, and usually my kids are out here on the back porch playing, so working in this garden is a lot easier than working in the front garden sometimes. So this garden tends to get a little bit more attention. She's a beauty, Clark. We'll come back in a couple days and you'll see all these little ones down here. They will turn into broccolis as well. We can come out and harvest more off of here. You can actually eat the leaves, eat the stems of the broccoli as well. Look at these random pumpkins just sprouting all over the place from that pumpkin I left there and let it rot. Huh. Alright, so here in my front garden you can see there's a big difference in the size of the broccoli, and I'm thinking that is attributed to the difference in the soil. The soil up here is much more sandy. And some of these broccolis I did not get out here and get them quick enough. They are going to flower and they will produce seeds. I'm not planning on saving these seeds this year. I still have plenty of broccoli seeds saved. So I'm just going to let them flower until I need to pull them out when I need the space, and if the seeds fall and they grow on their own next year, awesome. If not, no worries. So I'm just going to go through and get this broccoli. Alright, let's put it all in there and see what we got. Alright, so 9.5 ounces of broccoli. That's enough to make a good meal. If you're worried about there being any bugs in your broccoli, you can soak them in salt water for a few minutes before storing them away in the fridge or cooking them. That will make any bugs in there come out. You can do this with berries, lettuce, you can do that with most of your produce. Just soak it in some salt water, and if there's any bugs in there, it'll come right out. I have not personally had the experience of having a bug issue in stuff that I am eating, but I did read a post the other day about someone that had an unfortunate event with their salad. So just check your plants. It happens. It's part of growing food. I've even found stuff in grocery store food, so it's not safe necessarily from the grocery store and not from your garden. So I find all kinds of stuff in food from the grocery store. It's kind of crazy. There was one time I even found a piece of palate in a box of washed and ready to eat spinach. So stuff happens. And as I say that, I find this little guy on my broccoli, so we're gonna give these a good saltwater soak.
Our first coneflower blossom of the year. I'm so excited to make teas from this, and hopefully we can harvest some roots from this year.
All Alright, so here are 2 cherry tomatoes I came out and staked yesterday, and I do them very differently than I do my beefsteak tomatoes. I do my Roma tomatoes this way too because the Romas just kind of grow to a certain level and stop, and I don't have to prune them as severely as I do like a beefsteak tomato. So this cherry tomato already has some flowers coming out, and it's getting so long it's falling over.
I have these stakes. They come in like a 10-pack from Lowe's. They're for tying up flowers and things, not heavy stuff. So they're great for the cherry tomatoes.
So we're just gonna put this in kind of near the base.
And then we're gonna tie it up to the pole like every 6 inches or so. These cherry tomatoes only get to be about 3 feet tall, so we don't need big T-posts because they're not gonna be that heavy.
I'm gonna bring you in a little bit closer so you can see what I'm doing better. Every 6 inches or so, I will tie this loosely to the pole. I want to have some space in here so that if the wind blows, it can move. You don't want to have it so tight that the string will cut into your plant. My rooster wants to let everyone know that it is morning time. Alright, so now that I have it tied up here, as it keeps growing, I'll put more ties up along the pole as it keeps growing and needs more support. Now the next thing I want to do is prune any leaves that are touching the ground, because the leaves touching the ground is a recipe for disease. Now, the biggest difference between the way that I prune my cherry tomatoes and the way that I prune my beefsteak tomatoes is I do not take the suckers off of my cherry tomato plants or my Roma tomato plants because they have a finite height. They don't continue to grow. I don't take the suckers off. I let the suckers go because I want to get as much as I can from that plant. And if you don't know how to know what a sucker is, as you're going up your stem, when you see a joint like this is the branch, this is the sucker. The suckers are capable of turning into their own plants and they will produce fruit. And on a beefsteak tomato, you would want to remove the suckers because it just gets to be too much. But on the cherry tomatoes and the Roma tomatoes, I leave the suckers on there because I want to get as much fruit as possible. So as we're looking at the bottom of this plant to see what's touching, we see all these leaves down here, and this is from a stem, if you can see that. Here's that joint, so this is the sucker that's going to produce fruit. This is a leaf, and it's going down towards the ground. It's touching the ground, so we're going to trim this one off. And then this growth down here that's all touching the ground, I'm going to trim all of that off. But I'm going to leave this sucker. If it starts going down where it's touching the ground, I will probably trim it off. But as of right now, it's not touching the ground. So we are going to leave it alone. So the base of our plant looks like this. These are some coming out of the ground. I'm going to leave that one alone. It might need to get pruned off later, but I think it's a sucker that's going to kind of just produce its own thing, and so we're going to leave that there, and it looks good and it has good airflow. That is all the pruning that needs to be done on this cherry tomato. You're so majestic. So majestic, Miss Mau Mau. Mau Mau and Pickles. I'm gonna go see what else I can get done before the kids wake up. But thanks for coming and hanging out today. It's always fun having you here. And let me know if you have any questions about pruning tomatoes. I have a question for you. When you're pruning tomatoes, do you like the smell that the tomatoes make or do you dislike it? I'm curious. I will see you next time. Bye. Is that broccoli yummy? You like it? Is it your favorite? Yum. Yum.